Jason Murphy. I'm the Central Automation nerd here at Enable. Worked for MSPs. I worked here previously as a sales engineer. I came back December of last year. All in all, I've been using N-Central for about a decade. Focused on things like automation, optimization, making MSPs efficient. I deal with at least 4 to 5 partners a week around N-Central, and kind of making N-Central work well for your MSP business. With me today, which you probably heard with the modest French accent, Marc-Andre Tanguay, who probably doesn't need any introduction. Marc has been working at Enable even longer than I. He's been up here over a decade and has been focused on the automation journey during that time. He's built out much of the automation and objects in Automation Manager, and has been focused on helping our partners for a long time. Okay, so thank you. One stop for Enable. This is the Partner Success Center, and if you've never been in here, or if you don't have a login, please hit up your Partner Success Manager. This is where you can start to be successful with Enable. Obviously, being able to log cases, accessing our forums, accessing pre-recorded videos on the MSP Institute, our ideas page, and somewhere buried under that resources tab in the top right-hand corner is our automation cookbook, which we'll discuss a little bit later. So what are the office hours? If you've never been here, if this is your first time coming, this is about a Q&A, right? You're going to have questions around N-Central, around automation, around scripting, various other things. This is where you come in and have access to myself and Marc-Andre and ask those questions. You're going to engage with industry experts, foster an online community. I mean, again, I am available on things like Reddit, LinkedIn, and obviously our partner forums, and grow your business with tips, tricks, and best practices. Again, I speak to, majority of the time, I'm speaking to our elite and super elite partners, typically businesses that have anywhere from 2,000 to 25,000 devices under management. So a lot of the time I'm learning from them as well, and I get to filter that down to you through this automation office hours. And also get feedback on ideas and product suggestions. What is missing? What isn't working? Tell me, and that kind of thing. Okay. Now, what are some of the resources available to you today? Okay. Obviously, the automation cookbook. And if you've never been there, it's almost like the best kept secret here in Enable. Head over to n-able.com/cookbook. You will see over 550 automation policies and custom monitoring. And it's growing and growing all the time. When I started here in December, we had 350. So we've been growing it at a really great pace. As well, hit up the forums. Like I showed you earlier, success.n-able.com, click on forums. Our automation office hours, the way I get there to be able to register for events is head over to success.n-able.com and click on the events page. This is where you can register for any of our boot camps or any of our content. And if you missed something and you want to kind of review it later, you like watching videos online, podcasts, that kind of style, that kind of thing, you can also head over to the MSP Institute. You can click on Marc-Andre's face or my face or one of the head nerds, and you can see the content that we deliver. Okay, and again, there's over 20 plus automation courses available on the MSP Institute today. Okay, so one thing we like to highlight, before we begin, kind of answering questions, is, let me just slide this over here, is what is new on the automation cookbook since the last month. So I kind of want to just go through that really quickly with you, and kind of highlight some ones that were added. And I think if I remember correctly, in the last month, we probably have close to 50 different new policies. Deploy threat locker, set password complexity flags. There's an automation policy loop example. Okay. Office click to run, 32-bit versus 64. Simple ones. They're not all fancy. Some are just good PowerShell objects that you're going to be able to contain in here and get local users. This one I will be talking a little bit later. Enable Bitlocker. That's pretty slick. Normally in Uninstall, you either had to buy a product or you had to do it manually. Enabling Bitlocker, we can actually do that through command line now. So enabling Bitlocker through PowerShell. AV status monitoring was added, and just to kind of give you an update on that, this particular version 2.41 has added some bug fixes and I think CrowdStrike and a few others in there as well. Again, Bitlocker keys. Again, what we're going to be able to do is get the Bitlocker keys and also then store them for later in Uninstall. Language defaults, we can change that. Come up at the top of here. Teams, clear cache, disable SMV1, SMV2, and enable SMV2, disable Windows Hello, uninstall Desktop Central, uninstall TeamViewer, uninstall Synchro. There was I believe a lot of our partners were asking for RMM uninstallers, and I built a few of these, and Mark built a few of these, and we added them to the cookbook late last month. Edge removal, enable file and print, etc., etc. The important part here is go over and look, and you can filter. Like if you want to look for PowerShell, click on that. If you want to look for automation policies or custom services, just filter down and do your searches. If you want to do something for Windows 11, again, you can see what is available for Uninstall in terms of Windows 11, and come down there and it's somewhere in here. There it is. Okay, so Windows compatibility checker for Uninstall, right? So if you want to do something to see if your customer endpoints are ready for Windows 11, by all means come in and run that policy, and you'll see that automation monitoring. And again, that was built by our good friend over at CyberDrain, Calvin. Okay, let me just come back. All right, so we're at the best part of this. Now, the first questions from James was, good morning, is there a way to monitor snapshots checkpoint via Uninstall? We use Veeam, which created a snapshot before doing the backup. If snapshot is not removed, it then causes the backups to fail and then creates more snapshots. We would like to be alerted when a snapshot has, sorry, the text is really small and my eyes are getting bad. Alerted when a snapshot has been created and not removed after the Veeam job is finished. Now, James, great question. I have personally dealt with this in VMware and not so much in Hyper-V. But let me just pull up an example and we can kind of walk through it. Okay, give me 1 second here.
We actually have one for Hyper-V. I just sent it to you if you want to show it on your screen.
Oh, okay.
Look in Teams.
Sure.
Basically, it does the same thing. So what you can do is through Automation Manager, there's objects to capture the snapshot information from Hyper-V, and then you loop through, and based on your criteria, I guess the time or the size or whatever you choose, you can clean. There's no way to do it automatically after the job, but what you would do is this: if you know the job runs from midnight to 1 a.m., at 2 a.m. you would run this cleanup and find any snapshot left over. Now you need to be sure there's no other snapshot you want to keep, but as long as you know which ones they are, if they have the name Veeam in it or something like that, you can find them, you can clean them up, and that's what you can do. So if you
let me just open it up and I got it here. I had like layers and layers of windows on my laptop, so I just had to kind of find it. Let me just pull that open. Okay, so first thing first is we're going to get all snapshot information, VM name, and then we're going to do a for each loop where through each if for getting all of the snapshot information, and let's look at the variables or the inputs that we've created. Okay, just in name. So the name of the snapshot, partial name is okay, value Veeam. Okay, let me get rid of this and move down. So get snapshot information, list by name. Again, that value will be part of the input, name of the snapshot. then remove snapshot. Okay, so what you're going to do is, and hopefully, James, this is something that's going to be able to work for you, is you're going to be able to remove those snapshots using something effective like this. And again, if you want something like this, simply send a question through the questions pane asking me for the VMware snapshot or Hyper-V snapshot AMP, and I can get it to you after this boot camp, or send me an email. My email is jmurphy@n-able.com. Marc-Andre Tanguay, is there an easy way to create a task in the Windows Task Scheduler? And Marc-Andre was great enough to throw in some PowerShell. I can't do a copy and paste in that.
Yeah, I put it in Teams as well.
Oh, you put it in Teams? Okay, well, great. So let me just take that out here.
Yeah, so the example Jason's going to pull up is something I found online where it creates the syntax block for the scheduled task, and then it does the action at the end. So if you want to run a specific command, a program, daily, whatever, you want to program a auto remediation or something like that in Windows scheduled task versus through automation, you would do it through this command. Now, I've not tested it just that much yet. I did try it here; it seemed to work, but it's something that you want to play with a little bit. And it's a little small if you want to make it tiny.
Sure.
Sorry, I mean the text.
Oh.
Control and, oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a mouse.
Never mind.
If you can't see it, again, we can make that available for you. You can just send me an email.
I'll put in the cookbook today.
Okay, cool. And there you go. And Mark, if obviously you have any questions for myself or Mark, obviously feel free.
Yeah, so if you want to go back real quick, just for anybody else. So if you have a similar situation, there you go. The first line is just telling you which action you want to do. In this case, it's PowerShell.exe. It's just running a specific PowerShell command to back up or clean up the app log. But you would basically swap that for whatever program you want to run with the actual path. PowerShell is known path, you don't need to. Then under arguments, you would put in whatever you need. So if you want to run a program with some arguments, you would have to put that there. And the trigger itself is when you want to do it, daily, weekly, monthly. Those are actual native PowerShell commands. You just need to Google that new scheduled task trigger, and it'll tell you can do daily, weekly, monthly, things like that. You can do multiple of them and everything. And then the last one, the register, is what creates the task for you. And then make sure you put a proper name and description, because that's what's going to show in these scheduled tasks. So if you do multiple of them, you don't want to have 10 with a similar name that you don't know what they do. So I would say just be careful using something like that, but that's a very efficient way to do it. This one does not check if it already exists. I would probably recommend adding some check in place to say, does the task exist? If it does, replace it. If not, create it. That way you don't duplicate or create confusion in your task. Just something to be aware as well. And then done.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, I was just reading through the next question while you were talking here. Brandon had a question. How do I mass remove service template associations from devices? Wow, this is something that I deal with almost daily. So I'll read the rest and we'll talk about that. When a filter is changed to exclude them, the service template may stay associated and must be disassociated manually, as far as I can tell. I'm looking for ways to mass remove services and service templates from devices when rules and filters change to no longer include them. Okay, so Brandon, okay, let me just pull up in Central. We'll talk through this. This is almost one of my favorite things, and I do talk about it on. So if you're maintaining N Central for a long time, you're making changes, and sometimes you don't even realize some of the changes that you're making. Not that you're necessarily having a negative impact when making changes, but oftentimes you'll see things just don't look right? Now this is a very vanilla lab that I have. Mark and I stood this up maybe a month and a half ago, so it's pretty brand new. So you're not going to see a lot of customization in here. But what happens is that when you have, I'll just give you an example. Let's go down to something like workstations. When we have what I call, and this is how I determine, is that when you have Windows, laptops, workstations, network devices, there is core monitoring in Central out of the box that's just getting applied, right? Now, you'll see here that based on the devices that I have. I only have a few workstations, but the ones that I do have now been associated with this particular template, this clone. Now, if you make changes to the stock or the default templates in N-central, we then clone them. And those associations then carry over, because what we're essentially doing is updating the template, and also, let me come down to the bottom again, and also accompanying that change directly into monitoring options and workstations, cloning it and adding in those changes. Now, when you change filters, right? So, for example, I want to target, say, not all workstations, but I want to target, say, only Dell workstations or something like that. Well, effectively, what you're doing is you're not disassociating, right? You're segmenting it, right? But now you're only targeting that one group. However, this particular template is still associated to everything else, right? So when you want to retarget or re-engineer some of this, you really need to be methodical, because there are devices that you're trying to target, but then there's a segment of devices that you're not. What are you doing with those? And you need to do something with both. So what I typically do, and I don't get too in depth in this in my optimization bootcamp, I do touch on how to do change templates and how to apply monitoring. Because when you have core monitoring, for example, and you're talking about all of the monitoring that is adhered here, and you have 10,000 workstations, or say 10,000, laptops and workstations, applying a change shouldn't be just, I'm applying it to all devices. One, when you have 10,000 devices, oftentimes that wheel will spin for 20 minutes, it'll stop, it'll error out, you never know what's going to happen. So what I advocate for is coming in and doing essentially what are called change templates, right? So say I want to make a change to patch. What I will do is I will come in, well, one, I will come into that cloned workstations-Windows template, make the change there. That will ensure that any future device now has that core template change. But then what I'll also do is for any current device, I'll come in and find patch, add it in, add the service, make my threshold changes, rework the patch status the way I want, and you can see that there's no association, save. But then I will either, one, create a filter solely targeted around this particular new template, my change template. So patch status v2 new monitoring, and then change template. What I will do is add this in through either the all device view, manually, maybe targeting a particular customer. I just want to do something different on them. Or what I will do is then do it through a rule, an additional rule, right? Now, what happens when you have overlapping configurations? Well, I don't even have a good answer for that, right? And that's where you really need to be careful in N-central around, and I could talk about this for another half hour, so I'll give it up in another minute, but you have to be careful of how you're applying templates in N-central through rules. Because yes, you're trying to segment and add something custom, but you may be adversely affecting all of the other monitoring via our core templates. So when it comes to workstations, laptops, servers specifically, which is probably the bulk of the devices you have in N-central, segmenting those and getting into CDPs and everything else needs to be done very methodically. And again, I could probably do a whole boot camp on that, but I just wanted to kind of touch on that. One, I make a modification to the core template, and then what I do is typically assign the changes via the all device view, segmenting those devices and filtering that way. Okay, let me just move that out of the way here. More questions. There we go, questions, man. So Brandon, if that didn't address your question, shoot me an email. I'd love to talk about it more. How do I get a report for the Windows 11 AMP? Great question. How do you get a report?
I think it means the Windows 11 compatibility.
Yeah, but then reporting on
active issues, dump it all.
Yeah. So what you can do is when you have your custom monitoring, right? What you're going to be able to do is find your failed. I don't think I have it in this build. No, I wouldn't have the custom monitoring in here right now, but I know what you're talking about. Then you would filter on any of the ones that are failed, select all, and then export. And that is one way to do it. I think you can also do it in Report Manager, but I haven't hooked in my Report Manager to do that as well, because you should be able to also report on particular services in Uninstall. I don't remember exactly where in Report Manager that would be, or I'm talking at my butt, but I'm pretty sure you can target a particular service and report on it through Report Manager. So I'd have to look at that. Jerry, ideas on how to prevent Windows 11 until it's funny you mentioned this. I wrote a blog on this today. Well, actually, I wrote it yesterday. It's getting posted right now. It might even be available here. Let me look to see if our blog guy, his name's Pete, added it in. Blog. There it is. It is posted. So if you want to head over to n-able.com/blog, I wrote a small little blog telling you what I think you should do, and you don't have to take my advice. But what essentially I'm telling you to do is, one, remove upgrades and feature packs from any of your auto-approved rules today, at least today, and then go ahead and walk through blocking. Let's come back, good old trackpad. Going through and creating a automatic decline rule in N-Central, right? And being able to, segment that, right? So what you're going to want to do is decline all Windows patch rules. This is kind of cut off. What should be over in here, I'll have to get that screenshot fixed, but what should be over in here are feature packs and upgrades, FUs and upgrades. And then from there, go to your Windows, under the products, go to Windows, select it all, make sure new products will be selected. Then under the keyword section, type in Windows 11. Target any of on the second tab in terms of targets, you want to decline across all of your patch rules. And if you don't have patch rules, that's even probably a bigger problem. But you want to decline across, and you don't have to do this on servers, obviously. So any of your workstation patch rules, and then make it immediate. Okay, 0 day. Okay, read the blog. There's probably a little more detail in there, but go ahead and do that. Then when you're ready, right, to do other Windows 10, the thing is we need the Windows 11 KB. Now you're probably thinking, well, it's already too late. It's probably been released. Well, our Windows Patch Manager will not actually pick it up until, I think what Chris Dunsmore told me is tomorrow. So right now, nobody can get Windows 11 by N-Central today, even if you wanted to, from what I've been told. So you have until tomorrow to kind of get this set up. Now, that being said, I have seen reg hacks and other ways to make sure that Windows 11 isn't going through. I didn't want to kind of get into kind of hard coding that and making reg changes because I just don't know what it's going to do, right? So right now, this is what I would call the N-Central version of being able to use N-Central to block Windows 11, right? Then once we know we have a KB, we have a Windows 11 upgrade path, we have all the information in N-Central, then what we can do is really segment anything from Windows 10 upgrades to Windows 11. Okay, so that's how I'm recommending that you do it today. Any questions on that, Jerry? Let me know. Okay. I need to identify Chrome x86 versus, this is like the second or third time I've had this in maybe it was you previously, Brett, on Slack, I'm not sure. But I have heard this. I don't know of a way, because right now in our patch manager, I don't think we're able to differentiate. And it wasn't you, it was another partner that I was working with that wanted to, they were out of the UK. When you have x64 installed.
He's not talking about patch, he's talking about leading it into our tools, like reactively knowing what does he have. Building a custom monitoring, sure I can do that.
The thing is, when I looked at it, I couldn't find anything in the registry under Chrome for x64, and I could be wrong. If I could find it in the registry, that is one thing. The partner did send me something on that, but then he went ahead and kind of built it on his own, so I kind of forgot about it. Brett, if you want, let me check that email. If you want, send me a quick email and I'll see what I can dig up, and we could probably just build some monitoring or automation on that kind of right away, because obviously you want to be able to differentiate between what is x32 and 64. So completely got it. Oh, you got it?
I think so.
Okay.
I'll try to build it for you, Brett. I think I got something.
Yeah, maybe if Mark builds it, we can kind of review it at the very end.
I'm having fun building stuff that is in the questions.
We are currently manually patching certain types of updates. We tried to, this is Quentin, by the way. We're currently manually patching certain types of updates. We tried to decline a patch and applied it to children, but it kept resetting to approved for install. Should a patch decline be overruled by automatic approvals? Yes, if done correctly. So the way to always ensure that your declines are always going to supersede any other status is to do it at the customer level first. But I've never had to do that. I've always maintained all of my declines at the global level or at the service organization level. But what should happen is that when you have any patch that comes into Uninstall, it essentially comes in as no approval, right? The only way you'll have conflicting is if you have conflicting rules. One should supersede, and this is why I'm going through the whole Windows 11, removing updates and upgrades, because yeah, I could just say, yeah, just go ahead and do a decline in Uninstall. That should work. I'm not 100% confident that it would. So if you do have overlapping approvals, decline, in my opinion, should take precedent. The problem is that when you have overlapping anything in Uninstall, you'll run into problems in my opinion, right? So same thing with overlapping rules, right? If you're trying to do two things on the same target, you know, and they conflict, I don't know which one is going to do what you need it to at the very end, right? Because essentially you have conflicting rules. So Quentin, what I would recommend is not having those conflicts and making sure that, one, you're either building your decline at the customer level because you have to decline something very, very important, or making sure there's no conflicting approvals at the global level. I know, not ideal. Daniel, I'm working on autopilot automation policy, and I have seen a couple myself, by the way. This is the script that I have created. It says, sorry, just let me pull this back, my eyes are bad. It says it runs successful, but it's not outputting the CSV file. Thoughts? Okay, and if I could copy and paste that into PowerShell, it'd be great, but the problem with GoToWebinar is that, you know, once you put it into question, it's just text. Daniel, if you want to send that to my email, I'll come back to it, if you don't mind. Okay. Let me look at my email in just a little bit, or maybe at near the end of the call, Daniel, and we'll take a look at that. Good morning. Long-winded question. I'm one of two security engineers for a fairly large MSP. The last security team left the place a bit of a mess. I'm working to hey, I've worked for MSPs 4 or 5 years. We're all a mess. That's life, right? I'm working to overhaul our enable practices and security configurations. What are some of the places to start? Also, hi, Mark. We met last week, and that's Nathan. Okay. So, and that's a really great question. And hey, in fact, it was one of the things I was going to visit at the very end if we ran out of time. Is it's Cybersecurity Month. What are some things that we should do? And so, Nathan, thank you. Great question. And there are a number of things that we have added within the cookbook, right? So let's just start there in the cookbook and cookbook. I just want to touch on a couple, only because let's be honest, you're a security engineer, and the MSP market, the RMM market, is an attack vertical, and we all know that. Whether it's monitoring high sophisticated monitoring tools like SolarWinds Orion, or whether you're Kaseya, Datto, Enable, what have you. If you can get the keys, you obviously have access to the kingdom. Now, obviously, there's a lot of great security tools out there. I'm not going to advocate for Huntress or ThreatLocker or the other. There's a lot of good tools out there. But look through at least some basics. And this is not probably just for you because you're probably more of an advanced security engineer, but there are even the basics in here that you can run. What happens is you have, if you're a really big MSP, you have 10,000, 15, 20,000 devices under your management. A lot of those customers have already dealt with MSPs. And what happens when an MSP loses a contract? Okay, you're not paying me, see ya. Next MSP comes in and throws in their tool set. And what happens is nobody's really looking after the environment the way they need to. Pardon me. So one thing I would recommend, only because I've spent a lot of time on it in the last little while, is look through some of the uninstallers that are in here, whether it's Kaseya, Datto, any of our competitors, Synchro, Altera, built a few. Go through and start removing any of your competitor RMMs from your customer devices. So that's one thing I would start with. Other head nerds are working on, I know Mark, our sales nerd, Stephanie, and our security nerd, Lewis, are all kind of working and collaborating on kind of Cybersecurity Month. So stay tuned in terms of the blog page and what we're going to put out there as well. But there's tons of best practices that we're advertising. And one thing I will tell you is that on the MSP Institute, Stephanie and Lewis did a kind of a co-head nerd security webinar about how to build out your security practice within your MSP. If you have not seen, I spent 45 to an hour on that bootcamp. It was fantastic. It's chock full of great information. So head on over to the MSP Institute. Let's see if I can find it. What I do is I go to Content Library, and then I usually click on Nerds. And there's Stephanie. Let's see if it's under here.
When was that bootcamp? It was recent, right?
Yeah, but she sent an email out yesterday saying it was published.
Might be under Lewis.
Yeah, it might be. That would make sense because it was basically, it is security. So let's see if Lewis is in here. Here he is. And if there's anybody who, I mean, if I can't find it, nah, it's not in here. I know she sent out the link. It's in my email. If you want to watch that particular recording, I will highly recommend it. I do boot camps, probably 15 a month or more. It was amazing. It's really, really well done. So I would recommend checking that out. So if you want J Murphy at n-able or jason.murphy at n-able.com, you can use either.
What Jason means is that they're much better than we are.
It was really good content. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah. Also, I sent you that Chrome 32 versus 64. If you want to show it real quick.
Sure.
There you go.
Yeah.
That was a fun one to build. It was pretty easy actually, based on where the files are.
Okay. We just pull this open.
There you go. Oh, not that one.
I do.
What do you mean?
Build. Yep. Test. Sorry, I need to open it. That's why.
Correct.
My bad. There it is. Do you want to walk through this, or do you want me to?
I can. It'll be faster.
Okay.
So what I do is I create a global variable to say Chrome isn't found, just in case I don't find it whatsoever. First thing I do after is I get the OS version. If it's 32-bit, it will not have program files x86. So that's important to note. So I get the version of Windows that you're on. Once I do that, I say if you're 64-bit, I go on the left side and I say, do you find the 32-bit installer or the 64-bit installer on the exe file? And if you do, I associate the proper version. And on the right side, if you have Windows 32-bit, I just check, is it installed at all? And if it is, it's got to be 32, because if you have 32-bit OS, it won't let you put 64-bit Chrome anyways. And that does it. So if you run this in the output, it will have an output variable that you can then make a custom service out of. And then you can have an alert if you're on the wrong version, and then you can go and have functions.
Slick, man. That's awesome.
That was a quick one.
I think I was thinking of doing it via some kind of registry search, but
much easier now.
Okay.
I'll put it in the cookbook so you guys can have it in the next 20 minutes.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Andrew, I'm looking to target specific servers to run everything about VM snapshots today. Oh, that's awesome. I'm looking to target specific servers to run VM snapshots on. I couldn't find an example, but are you able to select an endpoint or multiple? Actually, I think this one's even on the cookbook.
We do the cleanup, we don't do creation, but it's a simple one. To your question, we take the example that I did where I say clean up all the snapshots. We just need to modify it to say take that VM, if it's there, create a snapshot on Hyper-V or VMware. I have objects for both that I created, so you can use either or. So yeah, that one's to clean up. But what you would do is if you can get all snapshot, you would say create snapshot, and it would simply just let you create it. And you can do the same thing on either or. If you do reset, yeah, it'll just put that back.
Oops, sorry, clicked.
So yeah, so I would just say, put snapshot, because there's not that many snapshots. Yeah, so create snapshot for Hyper-V, and then a little lower, there'll be one for VMware as well. Actually, I think towards the bottom. So it's just a matter of which VM you want to do, what is the snapshot you want to give it. This will run and do it. So a lot of people use that when they do maintenance, for example. They'll know I do an update at 2 a.m. once a week. I'll do a snapshot right before, and if everybody's happy, 2 days later I delete it.
Right.
That's how you do that.
Cool.
So it's just a matter. If you don't know how to do the actual actions, just reach out to one of us. We'll create it. But just with the amount of time we have and the amount of questions, I think I can take that one offline and do it for you pretty easily.
Right.
There are a lot of questions today. This is fun.
I know, it's awesome. Hey, Darren. This is really an automation policy issue question. Is there a way to deploy the latest version of PowerShell 7 to PCs? Oh, okay. The issue I'm having is that Microsoft has distinct links for each version. So it doesn't seem possible to have an automation policy to just download the latest version and install it. Oh, okay. So you want basically the latest and greatest, and maybe run that as a dynamic instead of having a hard-coded link into a specific version. Mark, what would you recommend on something like this? Would you just target a simple, one specific version and maybe wait it for, because I think Microsoft is going to start doing PowerShell updates the way that Darren is describing in Windows 11.
Yeah, they actually announced that PowerShell 7 was going to be deployed through Windows updates in the near future, but they've not given a date. What I would recommend personally is use Chocolatey. Chocolatey has a way to install PowerShell 7. It's currently 7.1.4, which is the latest one. So it will do that. You can do portable if you prefer, but I would personally like the core regular install, and just use the built-in Chocolatey that we have and deploy that. Much easier. You're not in the book. You're in the. But yeah, so I would use that, and then the app name I believe is PowerShell or PowerShell-Core, something like that. And then you can use that. That would be my suggestion. Keep it simple. Somebody already created it. The links change all the time, and they actually keep up with that, so that makes it much easier. Now, if you don't trust it, you're welcome to go in the script and grab it yourself and just do it. And while Jason's panicking to access the URL,
my God,
it's literally just there.
Anyways, search for Choco. You'll find there's a bunch of Chocolatey examples in the cookbook, and you can just modify it and then target PowerShell 7.
Yeah.
Okay, let's come down here.
Yeah, I'm uploading the Chrome example right now to the cookbook.
Cool. Quentin, is there a way to retrieve the event log of a PC server from Uninstall without logging into the device? I would say
2 ways.
You can do it 2 ways?
Mm-hmm.
How would you do it?
I would go into the reactive component of Enable, another Uninstall, and just go into the file system and download the files. So you run the app that I showed earlier. It's going to be in the cookbook. It backs it up to that folder. You go into the reactive, you download the file, you're done. Easy. Second option is to upload it to an FTP. You upload the FTP object, and it will upload it for you.
Okay, so I misunderstood. Like, can you do the entire log? Yes. But what about looking at the event? Like, are you able to see a particular event directly in Central?
No, to see the events, you need to be on the machine at the moment.
Right.
I honestly, event logs are losing a lot of their usage unless you have something specific. At that point, typically I recommend to get in the machine. You don't want to keep the events on the Uninstall server. They balloon to so much data now.
Yes.
So personally, I prefer to keep it that way. For the amount of times a month I need to go into it, or I need it back in the day, that would be what I would prefer. But the ways I said is the only way. You would download the files, then you would look at it on your machine. Keeps it simple that we don't bother the user. But
and
yeah,
maybe Quentin's trying to clarify here. Let me just.
Yeah, if you can, but that's what I would typically play with.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to event log monitoring in Central, I would say yes, easy. It can get very noisy, create a lot of tickets and what have you. So I don't find log monitoring as, hey, unless you're a regex expert. If you can do regex, you can actually fine tune it the way you need to and wrap around a lot of code so that you're getting exactly what you want, something time-based. A prime example is something I was working with a partner a week or two ago on just, there's about 10 or 15 log on and log off events in Active Directory. And you have to turn on some logging, verbose logging in Active Directory, but you want to talk about, churning out a bunch of, codes. Like it is really noisy. It doesn't give you a whole lot of quality. So you have to have something that's going to kind of give you, something time-based. Tell me if 4624 is now coming up within the last 20, 30 minutes, right? If I see that brute force attempt, what could be a brute force attempt over 5 minutes, or your end user is just typing passwords randomly for 5 minutes, then send me a notification. So there's some things you have to wrap it around, but hopefully, Quentin, that may have answered your question on that. Not looking for log monitoring, but I was looking for specific event logs from blue screen of death instance in system and applications.
Then I would
head over. Well, the other one is head over to CyberDrain. There's actually a third-party tool you can use in PowerShell and also understand in what I would call layman's language what those 0x errors actually mean. I've looked at it. I have not built it, but I would recommend heading over to cyberdrain.com and looking for a blue screen of death. I know he built something on exactly what you're describing. Maybe I will build a boot camp for managing service templates, Cherry. That's a great one. Some of those things can get so noisy that sometimes I even forget that it's hard to kind of figure out and reverse engineer it all so it all makes sense. Are there any plans to create an automation to remove the new HP Wolfe security? It's funny because I read about that on Reddit a little while ago, or what is now HP bloatware. Or how would you suggest to remove that across multiple machines and clients? It's funny, I've been playing around with uninstall routines a lot lately. Cody, because I mean, obviously I would need to know a lot of names and paths and everything else. If you can get me that information, I'll work on it with you. Send me an email, jmurphy@n-able.com, which I seem to be the default answer for today. But obviously building an uninstall, there's tons of uninstallers you can model it off of on the cookbook. I use a method which is based in WMI, which people don't recommend because it can break things. So yes, there would be some testing involved.
See the link I sent you in Teams?
Sure.
Someone built it. Yeah, it's a GitHub basically, and someone built to remove HP bloatware. Part of that list is HP Wolfe security. So I have not tested it, but I would recommend if you want to try that. I'll put the link for you, Cody, in the questions. So I would say try that, and if it does work for you, let me know. I'll be happy to add that to the cookbook for everybody else. But it seems like it's removing all of it's looping through all the bloatware from HP and just removing it all. It's a simple PowerShell.
Nice.
Yeah, someone's actually saying that that's what they want to use it for, so I'm guessing it should work fine.
Nice, that's awesome. Is there a clever way to deploy software to a user via the Uninstall task tray icon? Oh my God, you're going to get me started. Well, Stephen has left the chat, but I can tell you the answer is both yes and no. You can run PowerShell via the task tray icon, but you would have to involve your end user for that kind of stuff. I wish there was a way we could send triggers. We're not there yet. I'm hoping by next year, we're going to have some answers around being able to do things via the task tray icon in Uninstall as well. Because Connect to Help, while pretty lightweight, executable, could do some very cool things. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left, and I've got about, I would say, 6 or 7 questions. Let's see if I can get through them all really quick. I think this has probably been one of the best boot camps for questions I've been to in a long time. Andrew, when I select different automation policies to run against a device, the credentials either default to local system credentials or use currently logged in user. What decides which credentials the automation policy defaults to, and is there a way to change this? I think you're meaning from like the automation manager side. Obviously, there's a credentials category. I use, of course, I'll get in there. You shouldn't get one, but you can change credentials for testing purposes directly on Automation Manager. However, and you can set it there, but there is no way to hard code and say always use local user or custom or anything like that. It will always default to that option. Now that is an on-demand, like when you're setting up the automation policy from Uninstall, you can choose, but there is no exposed default that I can modify that with and always choose something else. I wish that was the case. You just can't. You have to, every time you're looking to run the script, you're putting it out to your endpoints via rule or what have you, you have to go through and methodically incorporate the credentials or local user or system. Okay. Daniel, is there a way to monitor the Outlook PST size and notify when it reaches a certain size? I would say 100%.
Sorry, what's the question?
Monitoring the PST size locally on the endpoint.
Yes and no. So I've had this question many times before, Daniel. The problem I have with it is that PSTs don't get put in the proper location on their user profile. They go everywhere. So you would have to do a search of the whole drive to find them all and then get an alert when they reach a size. And that's pretty demanding on the machine. So typically people won't do that very much just because of the issues. If you need it for migration purposes or things like that, what you can do is you can do a search on the whole drive for it, but expect that your user may feel a performance hit or that's going to take a long time. And definitely do not do that as a monitoring unless you say run it once a day, not more. Right. Be very careful with that. But having said all that, there's an object in Automation Manager, find file, and you can say find anything with .pst. It'll give you a list. You can search for the size, and if it's over whatever of a failed state, no issue. But like I said, be very, very careful with that. I've had people complain about that.
Okay, Daniel said he emailed me. Okay.
That was my soapbox.
Awesome. No, you're right. I mean, obviously, I've run that particular object. You will feel it.
Yeah.
But if you're doing, again, a migration or something very important around this, day-to-day monitoring of the PST, probably not. But you may want to set that up for once a week, something like that. Could you show us how to uninstall a group of software that contains a certain word? It should uninstall one at a time.
It's in the cookbook too.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was headed.
Yeah, the only thing is the one in the cookbook takes under assumption that the software has a proper silent uninstall in the add remove program, and they don't all do it. A lot of programs these days are pushing back on that and actually not putting it in the registry because they don't want it to be easy to uninstall. So you can try it, but just keep in mind this will be hit or miss.
Well, and it's funny you bring that up because as I was going through creating these uninstallers over the past month, one thing I was looking to is kind of create a generic uninstall routine where I could just add in a particular name. And there are various ways you have to be able to uninstall software because there's no just kind of one way. Certain software can be installed and not exposed in the registry. Other time it's you have to do it through basically a GUID in WEL64. One way I found to do it kind of haphazardly was through WMI. But when I posted it to some colleagues who are a lot better at PowerShell than I am, they said not to use that method, in that it could have some disastrous results on things like SQL servers or Exchange. My point was really around Workstation, so I felt like, yeah, well, I tested it, it was safe, so I'm going to keep it around. But it's one of those things where I think this one's particularly on the cookbook. Maybe it's on remove. Only because we've got 4 minutes left. Raynock, if you want, can you hop on the cookbook, look for remove or uninstall? I know there's a way in there where you can, in the input, put like VLC, comma, Adobe, comma. It's definitely in the cookbook. And if you have any trouble finding it, let me know, send me an email, and I'll help you find it or send it to you, okay? Our partner advisory group, we have a PAG coming up. I think it is next week, I believe, or the week after.
Yeah, I think it's 2 weeks.
The week after. If you want to get involved in the PAG, again, you can send me an email on that, jmurphy@n-able.com. I'll get you involved in our partner advisory group. Gives you executive updates, roadmap presentations, feedback sessions, etc. Okay. Now, obviously, we're at the top of the hour. And again, if I didn't get to your question, you have my email at this point, jason.murphy@n-able.com. Reach out to me, and I'll do my best to answer any other questions you have. Okay, I really appreciate your time, guys. Thank you so much.